Hello everyone. I was super lucky in 2022 to go on more photography trips throughout Nebraska than I've ever gone in my life. There's one trip that really stood out among the others for a couple different reasons. Number one is the day was gorgeous. We had some fog rolling into the Nebraska hills, which is not like super common. So that was really cool. And then it was just an incredibly beautiful, gorgeous day. The sun was beautiful. Perfect day for the photography road trip. And the second reason it kind of stood out is because a little bit surprisingly, some of my favorite photos from the year were taken that day, and I took them with a system that most of us ignore, which is the Micro Four Thirds system. And here's the thing, if you're thinking about discounting the Micro Four Thirds system, look, I don't think you should. It's pretty awesome. I was using the EM5 Mark III that day with the 14-150, which in full frame terms is a 28 to 300 millimeter lens. And normally, in a lot of other systems, especially like full frame, that'd be a big, heavy lens. But in Micro Four Thirds, the entire package was so tiny, so light, that even though I had the Sony a7 IV with me, and the X Pro 3 with me, and the GFX 50S2 with me, I still reached for the EM5 Mark III more than any of the others because it was so easy to use and it was so much fun to use. Now, admittedly, I was out kind of looking to test the camera out. So that's one of the reasons I picked it up a lot. I also picked it up a lot because I just wanted to. I had those other cameras with me for specific reasons. Like if I wanted to take a really high megapixel landscape shot, or if I saw a bird in the sky, I had the one of my cameras set up for that. Or if I wanted some really low depth of field, I have all that stuff ready to go. But the Micro Four Thirds system made it so enjoyable just to pick it up and walk around the scene and get 28 millimeters all the way to telephoto. Wow, it was really impressive. And even that day, I wasn't sure how the photos were gonna look, but now that I look back at them, holy cow, they were some of the best that I took in 2022. I didn't go out to like do a test and a comparison between the EM5 Mark III and the other cameras. That was not my point of it. I was just wanting to go out and test that camera out. But in a couple of instances, I did take the same kind of style shots in that same location. So looking back now, it's kind of fun to compare, for instance, the EM5 Mark III photos with the GFX photos. So this photo of a tractor, this location of a tractor was one of the cool ones I found that day with all the different sunflowers. Beautiful, it was just gorgeous. So I did shoot a couple of things with my GFX 50S2 because I wanted to get high resolution shots that I can maybe put in my Etsy store to print bigger later on. But I took a lot of shots with the EM5 Mark III, right? And the Micro Four Thirds, when you put them side by side with the medium format at 100%, they look absolutely great. Now, it's really easy to tell in these two photos which one is from which sensor, right? You have this really creamy depth of field that you find in the GFX camera. And then with the EM5 Mark III, we're getting a lot more of the scene in the photograph. Some people like that, some people don't. What I want to kind of say is that it doesn't really make it worse. It just makes it different. And it just reminds me, for most of the people that are out there, I think that the Micro Four Thirds system, even though they ignore it, probably would work really well. So when we look at these two photos side by side, and you imagine printing them maybe at like 16 inches, 20 inches, you're not going to see that much of a difference. You're going to see more clarity out of the GFX, but the Micro Four Thirds stands up pretty well on its own. If we zoom in on both of these, yeah, there's a whole lot more detail on the GFX. But remember, when we're printing, it's going to look a little bit different. When we're sharing them online, it's going to look a little bit different. And I think for a lot of these, the EM5 Mark III is going to do a fantastic job in a much lighter, more versatile package that might make some people get out and take more photographs, just because maybe the thought of that big heavy GFX or even some of the full frame stuff might not motivate them to go out quite as often. And again, let's keep looking at some of that image quality from these two extremely different sensors. Another picture of a tree that I took with both cameras is probably a little bit of a better comparison. When you look at these side by side, again, you can't see that much of a difference. They both look fine. They both look really good. When you zoom in, of course, the GFX has a lot more detail. The Micro Four Thirds does not. But one of the things that we're living in 2023 and beyond is the idea that we have this amazing technology like Gigapixel and Photo AI, and I think the Luminar Neo now has the extension that can up-res photos. And if I take a well-exposed Micro Four Thirds image and process it through Photo AI, which is what I did on this photo, I'm doubling, tripling the resolution, and yeah, I'm getting a little bit of quality loss, but it holds up way better than we ever thought that these kind of files could do. So when I compare the up-resed file from Photo AI on the EM5 Mark III, the Micro Four Thirds on the left here, and you look at the GFX on the right, and we zoom into 100%, suddenly the differences are not that extreme. Now, they are there. The GFX has way more detail. Okay, it still does, even up with the up-res. But remember, for most users, what are you using the camera for? And for almost everyone that I teach, all the people that I interact with, they're not blowing up giant poster sized prints. They're maybe printing like 16 by 20s. They're selling some prints maybe that are 8 by 10s, or they're just sharing stuff on social media. And in those use cases, the Micro Four Thirds system is awesome. I guess why this was a standout experience for me at the end of 2022 going into 2023 is that I bought into a lot of hype this year. I, for instance, bought both of the new Fuji cameras, the X-T5 and the X-H2 that have 40 megapixels. And I know a lot of people who also did the same thing. People were selling all their old kits to go and buy the new stuff. And the big marketing point, the big thing on the headlines was the 40 megapixels on APS-C. And I have to admit, the 40 megapixels are nice, but I think that when I'm reading the forums and I'm looking at people's reactions and I'm talking to other people, it's not that astounding of a difference. I think that we would have all been okay with the X-T4 versus the X-H2 or the X-T5 if we're just gonna go purely by resolution. It's really not that big of a jump. And so that relates to the Micro Four Thirds question, right? The idea that it can't do a very good job in many different situations. If you go look at the ambassadors and a lot of the professional work being done with Micro Four Thirds, it is stunning, just like all of the professional stunning work that's done on GFX or full frame or any of the other cameras that are out there. What this makes me realize at the end of 2022, going into 2023, is that we are living in the zone of awesomeness, right? This zone where all of these cameras are coming out and we're complaining about tiny things. I made several videos talking about the autofocus in the Fuji X-H2 and X-T5 and how disappointed I was. And I'm still kind of disappointed. Got to be totally honest here real quickly. But those cameras do incredible, incredible things, right? And for me to complain about that is a luxury because we are living in a world where all these cameras do incredible work. So I think about on that day taking photos with the EM5 Mark III, even though I had the other 3 cameras there with me, best camera for that day was the Micro Four Thirds one. It was the one that I had the most fun with, the one that I picked up the easiest, and the one that just really kind of put me in the moment a little bit more. And I think we shouldn't discount that stuff. All of this gear is incredible, and let's just go ahead and embrace it all instead of having these camera wars where we're talking down to the other manufacturers, the other sensors, and any of that stuff. I hope that you enjoy this. If you do, I have a community. I don't really like getting on Facebook and Instagram right now. It's so saturated with ads that I built a community for other photographers that are like-minded, that want positivity. It's called the Positive Photo Community. I'll put a link below. I hope to see you there so we can discuss things like Micro Four Thirds and look at some of the great images we have. We do photo critiques. We're going to have a photo challenge every month of 2023. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll see you there, and I hope you had a great 2022.